what's going on, guys? This is Mike with Simple Freedom with Mike, and I told you in my last video we were going to start doing some new stuff on this channel, and I thought, what a better time, than now, than to start talking about the presidential election. Now, I have my own views about things, right? So, but I'm going to try to stay, as center as I can in this video, okay? I'm not going to be partisan. I just want to look at the data and see what we have, okay? And that's it, I'm going to probably say some stuff that's going to upset Trump voters, and I'm probably going to say some stuff that upsets Biden voters, okay? I just want to be as middle as I can. So without further ado, here we go. So as you can see, these are the latest polls. Now I'm using Real Clear Politics. 538 has some other polls out there that show Biden up a little bit more. But if you look at the latest national poll, you can see that Trump has kind of narrowed the gap. But if you look at the average, this is the average Real Clear Politics poll numbers. He's up by 7.4, Biden. And that is about 4 points higher, 4 or 5 points higher than Hillary Clinton was up in 2016 on election day. Now, this can change. Obviously, this can change. As you can see, Trump's a little bit, he is coming back. And, I think a lot of that has to do with his change in demeanor, and, he's, trying to take things more serious. And if that pulled, that could work. I'm not gonna lie, that could work. And I think it will get even closer. I think on election day it's going to be around the same average. I think Biden's going to be up 3 or 4 points nationally, and we'll see what happens. But you really can't take the national polls and try to figure out what's going to happen in the election. You have to look at the swing state polls. Okay, so we're going to do that. And I also want to show you how the polls weren't that off in 2016. A lot of people say that the polls were way off in 2016. Well, in a couple states they were. But honestly, they weren't that off. I think, especially mainstream media was trying to give Clinton, they were just hyping her up. But let's face it, Hillary Clinton was a very flawed candidate. Joe Biden has his flaws, but he is in no way the flawed candidate that Hillary Clinton was. So I know that, everyone was saying that Clinton was going to win. But if we look at the polls, honestly, it was pretty close on election day, and it was anybody's ball game. So let's go back. I want to show you this. I want to go to the latest Pennsylvania poll, which the latest Pennsylvania poll has Biden up by 9. The average has him up by 6. Okay, now that's a pretty decent lead. Obviously, Pennsylvania being Joe Biden's home state, and I think has a very good shot at going back to the Democrats. But let's look at the 2016 polls compared to these polls, okay? If you look, Clinton was up by 2 points, okay? She was up by 2 points, and Trump ended up winning by 0.7. So Clinton was up, but it was well within the margin of error. Well within the margin of error, and it was anybody's ball game. Now, if we go into election day and Biden's still up 5 or 6 points in Pennsylvania, I just don't see it. Now, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. And if Trump wins, if Biden's up by 5 or 6 points in Pennsylvania the day of election day and Trump still wins, you basically, pollsters just need to give it up, okay? Because, if they're way off on that one, then I don't know what to tell you. You need to do something different. But if you look at the polls from 2016, they weren't that off. Let's go to... so we have Pennsylvania. If we go to Florida, let's go to Florida. Okay, Biden right now has a 6.2 lead on the average in Florida. Okay, let's go back to 2016. Trump was up by 0.2. and he ended up winning by a little over 1%. So basically 1%. He ended up winning Florida by. But right now, Biden's up by 6.2. I think that was right? 6.2. So that's not good news for the president, okay? If Biden still leads by that much on Election Day, it's still the same thing. I just don't see Biden losing Florida if he's up by that much. And again, if they are wrong, then they need to do some serious looking at their models, because if that happens on Election Day, if he's up by 6.2 and he loses, and if Trump wins, man, I don't know what to tell you. But as of right now, I just think if Biden's up by that much on Election Day, Biden easily wins Florida by 2 to 3 points. I know that doesn't sound easily, but you know what I mean. I still think Biden wins it if he's still up by that much. Let's take a look at North Carolina. The average right now has Biden up by almost 5 points. Almost 5 points. Now, let's go back to 2016 and look at the polls. Trump was up by a point in North Carolina. He ended up winning it by 3.7, so well within the margin of error, right? So he was up by 1 point in North Carolina and ended up winning it by 3.7. So the polls were not that off, okay? Clinton had a couple leads here, but if you can look, Biden's been, doing fairly well in Carolina, and it has a lead right now. And I think potentially, it went blue in 2008. I still think it's going to be a hard state for the Democrats to win. I'm not going to lie. I think that number is going to go down 4.7. I think Biden could be up by 1 or 2 points come Election Day, and if that's the case, I think Trump wins. Because I do believe, and a lot of people think it's bullcrap, but I don't know. It could be. But I do believe there are secret Trump voters out there. I do. I really do believe it. And we'll see what happens. Arizona. Let's take a look at Arizona right now. Okay, Biden leads by almost 4 points in Arizona. Let's look at the polls in Arizona in 2016, shall we? Trump led by 4 points, ended up basically winning it by 4 points. Clinton only led here 4 times. 4 times in 2016. So, wow. What a turnaround. And one of the main reasons for that turnaround is because of Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly is trouncing, what's her name? Martha McSally in the Senate polls right now. Just trouncing. And, Mark Kelly voters, I think most of them, if not all of them, are going to vote for Joe Biden. Maybe not all of them, but most of them will vote Joe Biden. And if Biden keeps that lead going into Election Day, we're in for a barn burner. I think Arizona has a much better shot than turning red than Texas. But I'll show you Texas here in a second as well, which is crazy. But I'll show you what I think. So that's Arizona. If we go to Michigan, was okay. So Biden's up by 8 points, and Trump has basically pulled all of his advertising out of Michigan. That is not a good sign. If he's pulling all of his ads out, he knows it's not looking so good. Now, let's go back to 2016, okay? Clinton led here by 3.4, well within the margin of error. Trump ended up winning it by less than 12,000 votes. So if Biden has almost an 8-point lead on Election Day, it's over, in my opinion. I think Biden, wins Michigan handily if he has, an 8-point lead on Election Day. If it gets closer, who knows? If it gets down to, within the margin of error, then yes, it most likely Trump could win it. But if it stays above 5 points or so, I don't know. I just see Biden carrying it and flipping it back to blue. But as you can see there, that was well within the margin of error in 2016, and Trump ended up winning it. Barely, but he ended up winning it. So kudos to Trump. One poll that was way off in 2016, and I have to mention it, is Wisconsin. Okay, Wisconsin has Biden up 5 points right now on the average. But let's go back to 2016 real quick, and I want to show you. They had Clinton up 6.5. So that was definitely off. I'm not sure what happened there. It was off. It was way off. Even outside the margin of error, Clinton led here basically throughout. And Trump ended up pulling it off. So that was one poll that was way off. But other than that, I mean, honestly, they were pretty in line or within the margin of error. Let's go to Texas. I want to talk about Texas for a second. I need to go back to the first page that we were on. Give me a second here, guys. Okay, I'm going to find a Texas poll. I know there was... there was one here lately. There was a Texas poll. Okay, so here's the Texas. Biden up 1 in this poll, okay? Let's take a look at the Texas poll, okay? Trump is up 0.2, okay? Barely. Okay, so let's take a look at the polls in Texas. Trump's led there pretty much in every poll, but Biden led in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So Biden has, closed the gap, considerably. But let's take a look at 2016, because a lot of people think, oh my God, Biden, no way he wins Texas. Well, I don't think he'll win Texas either. But let's take a look at the 2016 polls. On average, Trump was up 12 points in 2016, and he ended up winning it by 9, so it was within the margin of error. But look at the polls. Nowhere. I mean, and I could go back. You can look. Clinton never led in Texas. Clinton never led in Texas. And now, and if you look, he ended up winning it by 9. And the average was 12. And now he's up 0.2. And the latest poll had Biden up 1. Wow. I mean, crazy. So I still think Trump wins Texas. But man, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. If Texas turns blue, it's over. I mean, if we find out Texas turns blue before Michigan, Wisconsin, I mean, it's over. I mean, in my opinion. And if Texas turns blue, Republicans are going to have a hard time winning an election, if that's the case. So we'll see what happens. In my opinion, what's going to happen? I don't know. Here's what I think. And I know this might upset some people, but this is my opinion. This is what I think is going to happen election day. The only two that I think could change, well, actually this one, Arizona. I think Arizona is going to the Democrats, okay? But I think Wisconsin has a very good shot at going to Trump, okay? So, but that's still, if he loses Arizona but wins Wisconsin, wins Florida, wins Georgia, wins Ohio, wins Carolina, he still loses. So, I mean, Trump's going to have to basically sweep. Well, I mean, he doesn't have to sweep. So let's just say that Michigan stays blue, but he wins Pennsylvania. That would do it. That would do it right there for him. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, I just don't see that happening. But who knows? That could happen. But I just wanted to do that, guys. I'm going to do some more of these on my channel. I'm going to try to stay as neutral as I can. But, obviously, we're going to piss people off either way. I mean, people get so triggered these days on both sides. So anyway, guys, you guys have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.